Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to be looking at my top 5 mistakes drivers make on the road. And this isn't just for novice drivers, you full licence holders are included also. First of all, I'm going to deal with what's not included in this list, and it's probably the most important one, and it's attitude. For me, attitude on the road is everything, but that should be a given for me. I'm just going to talk about 5 areas and 5 skills that people really do struggle with, and the first one is locking on. And we've got a perfect example here with this cyclist. People won't look at the space available, and most of these things that we're dealing with today are going to be linked to fear. So because the driver is scared of that cyclist, not that the cyclist is going to do anything to the car driver, but they're scared of that cyclist, they tend to lock onto them. And they don't actually see the spaces that are available. And it doesn't have to just be cyclists, it can be anything. I often find locking on to oncoming cars is a common thing that drivers do, and that's often why we see broken wing mirrors. It's why people shave other vehicles, and it's why they go too close to things on the left hand side. It's because they're locking on to the particular thing that makes them fearful the most, and it's instinct, and we can't stop ourselves doing this without training, that is. Here's a good example. Good. Take the second road on the left, not this little one, but just where the bus is coming out from. Can't signal. No. Use your brake lightly. When can you signal? Now. Good. Creep with your feet. Creep with your feet. Creep with your feet. Creep with your feet and stay. You're staring at the bus, Liv. Hold the bite. Hold. It's very slow for second gear. Alright. Right. So what we're going to do is find somewhere to park a little touch further. Relax, little chill a second. What went on with the bus?
I stared at it and I freaked myself off, and then I was like hesitant with me turning.
Cool. It's okay, it's totally understandable. It's totally understandable. So with that bus, it was your classic lock onto it.
Yeah.
Okay. When we did come up to the corner, what was our road like where we were going?
Clear.
Good. Was that bus over the centre line?
No.
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 So what should we have been doing?
Should have just gone over.
So it's that obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But remember, this locking on, it does cause problems, and it sounds logical, and it sounds easy, it sounds straightforward.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to get through that fear.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Alright? So the next time that you come up to a situation like that, try really hard to not just go, bus.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's difficult, but you rescued it actually pretty well in the end. So what should I do? I should be looking at the spaces that are available. Perfect to move around. So it's not the hazard that tells us what to do. It's the space available. And that's quite difficult to get your head round if instinct is telling you something different. The next one I'd like to talk about is gripping the wheel. It's often the thing when people ask me, can you give me any advice coming in towards your test? You probably think I'm absolutely mad sometimes when I just say try and keep your hands as loose as possible, and there's reasoning behind this. If your hands are really gripping, it produces tension. I don't know whether people realise, but there's a massive link between eyes, hands and feet. When you grip the wheel really tight, your eyes are like that, and your feet also tense up, and you won't be able to operate the car properly. More importantly though, driving is all about observation, and if your eyes are on stalks, you're not going to move them round enough to see everything that you need to take in. So try and keep your hands as loose as you can. You should be able to hear this when you're driving and not this. Try it, you'll be surprised how much it works. This next one I'm going to deal with is a little bit to do with the last one about gripping your hands. We've got a perfect example with this big lorry sat next to me. Again, due to fear, and this is usually which triggers most of these problems. What people will do, they'll look at the lorry and they'll steer to avoid. Now, most of the time when we're on the road, what we should be doing is adjusting our speed to fix things. For example, I'm now going to keep ahead of the lorry, which then reduces risk. Perfect, no issues. And you could also do the same by maybe holding back of the lorry or the particular vehicle that's a problem. But what people tend to do, they'll stare at one thing, and if they don't like it, instinct again will push them away from it. They'll go in the opposite direction. And this also causes the problems like I mentioned earlier about maybe wing mirrors getting taken off and being too close to things on the left. Cyclists again, this is part of the problem why cyclists get close passes all the time. It's not because people want to, I know sometimes they are, but it's often because they'll see, and drivers will see the oncoming vehicles and they'll be steering away from that biggest fear. And most people do wrongly take the position from the right hand side. You shouldn't. You should take your position from the left. The left is the side that changes, and you should adjust where you're going to here, not there. Here's Liv giving us a real life example. If you don't need to. Now, position to that white one's way too close. You're trying to keep away from them. Rather than look at the space.
Yeah.
Your normal position needs to be taken from the left. Alright. Look at the space rather than the cars. Is the space significant?
Yeah.
Keep out and have a look at it, because then the lorry can see you as well. Space is fine, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fine.
You need to slow down then? No. Onto it?
Yeah.
Yeah? So try not to stare at the hazard. Try and look at the gap. Try and look at the space.
Yeah.
Same with the lorry. Ignore the lorry if he's over in his lane. Have you got enough space in yours?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Great.
A lack of adjustment of feet is the next thing that we're having a look at.
Slow down a little bit.
Good. When you're going to start your early brake. Not too heavy, not too much. You can always increase. Good. Well, what gear are you going to pick at this speed? Creep early but slowly. Good. What's the lorries doing now? What should we be doing?
Going.
Yes.
Going.
Good. Going.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not catching.
No.
Just keep steady with them and make sure we're not closing this gap down. You're actually accelerating a little much.
Yeah.
Now you're not enough. Do you understand?
Yeah, yeah.
Change what we're doing with our acceleration to suit what we see.
Yeah.
Good. Don't press that gas that routine amount, because you're again catching.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
You have to change what we do to suit each situation.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I know there's a big selection, especially of my viewers, who will be adjusting speed, and think about what I've done there. There's a lot of you viewers who would do a similar thing. You would always try and arrive at a gap and space, because then that reduces risk massively. But there's a big number of people on our roads who don't work like that. They treat their car like a dodgem car. They literally stay at the same speed and just avoid things. We've seen this in a number of clips that I've done on my analysis series, where people just carry on. I think Danielle's clip, I think the one where she had the lorry emerging from the left on the faster moving carriageway springs to mind. But this is often down to fear as well. If you think what I've said about gripping the wheel and all tension, that's why the feet don't work. So, like I said, there's a big link with this stuff today over fear. So, adjust your car. It sounds obvious, but adjust your car to what's happening and what's going on. Try not to accelerate away in a routine manner. Try not to use your brakes in a routine manner. people tend to, they just press a pedal in the same way all the time for everything, and they don't actually squeeze. Again, this squeezing of the pedal, it's down to fear. I've mentioned this I did a video not so long ago about the fastest acceleration that you can get from a car. People don't like putting the foot down a little bit. I know some do, but some people don't. Even here, I'm creeping super slowly and I've kept this moving. Happy with everything, no issues, on we go. How many people actually try and do that? Because if you do try and do that, it forces planning and it forces you to adjust feet. So try it, because it helps. The last one I'm going to deal with is where to look when you are not necessarily just going in a straight line, but steering around corners as well. Let's deal with just generally as we're just travelling down the road. People look far too close. What they are really fearful of, again, it's another fear related one, is the front of that car. They think, well, if I look at the front of the car, I'm going to keep an eye on that. That's the thing that's going to crash into something, so therefore it must be safe. And honestly, people do think in that way. I know it does seem ridiculous to some people, but if you are one of those people who are fearful of the front of the car, you need to try and get away from it. You can actually do this quite comfortably by, if you look at and focus at your hand, you can see very little of what's happening out there. I'm watching at this and I can just see the bus moving past me peripherally. But if I look really far and my hand's here, I can see it wiggling, I can see it holding 3 fingers up, and that's with me looking right down at the other end of the road. And that's proof that if you look close, you can't see far, but if you look far, you can still see close. So try and look as far as you can. It helps if you're a good distance away from people, so try not to get too close in. But that's the first thing. But the next thing is where people look when they are steering. This is something that I've covered in detail before. Good job, I was a good space. And I'm going to do a left turn here, and it just gives me a nice chance to explain it just while we're stopped. People always look where the car points, and not everyone. It's probably, I would say, 50-50. But a lot of people look where the car points to do steering rather than to look where the car wants to go. The same can be applied for right turns as well. That's why people cut corners. It's because they look at that front and think, oh, I'm there, start turning. But then they go straight across this side. So it can apply to lefts and rights, what we're going to do. So here, I'm looking far around the corner. And the wheel's still.
But if you are looking in front, it makes you feel as though you want to and need to steer more to the left.
You'll always spot the people who do look really close, whether it be on the straight parts or if they're going around the corners, because they zigzag. They look down at this line and go, ah, and steer that way. And then they'll look down at this side and go, ah, and steer that way. And they do exactly the same to a certain extent as they're going around bends. When people have problems with their driving, they tend to have problems with these skills. It might be 1, 2, 3, or even all of them that they have issues with. I tend to teach skills rather than the junctions, and there's reasons for this. If you've got a problem with roundabouts, for example, you've probably got a problem with the skill of maybe locking on to that vehicle coming from the right side. You've probably got a problem with maybe looking too close and not setting your steering up to go around a corner. You've probably got problems with a lack of adjustment of feet. So if you improve on these skills, your junctions and everything else is going to follow. While you've been watching that video, have you thought the things that I've been talking through are pretty obvious? They are. But that is until you can get through that emotion of fear. And that's the big problem I've alluded to in all of these. They're all fear-based. And unfortunately, driving is like that. So don't be embarrassed if you are scared of these certain things. And it's only when you get through this emotion of fear that you can then start accepting the obvious is the correct way to do things. Please let me know in the comments how many of these skills that you suffer with. Do you do all of these things well? Or is there 1 or 2 that are your sticking points? They do affect most people when they're driving. It's only, honestly, probably the top 5 or 10% that don't generally have any problems with one or a number of these things. So please let me know in the comments which one you suffer or how many you suffer with. I hope that's helped. I hope that's give you an ability to analyse yourself and maybe improve your own driving. That's what this channel's all about. Your support is always appreciated. Keep safe. Hope to see you soon.